Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Gaza. That's the subject this morning. Donald Trump has made a suggestion that the United States take over the Gaza Strip and that the Gaza Strip be developed as the ideal place to go on vacation, the Riviera of the Middle East. My goodness, what will come next? Now, let me offer a few observations about Gaza. I first visited the Gaza Strip in 1968. I have been there many times. And I have to tell you, when I was there in 68, the beaches were pristine. And a number of my friends said, gee, this would be a great vacation spot. And, we all agreed there was one problem. The Strip in those days was populated by a rather large number of Palestinian Arabs who weren't interested in developing a Riviera. In fact, in those days, they weren't sure what they wanted or what they needed. And then came the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. And all of a sudden, the Palestinians of Gaza were mobilized to support the efforts of Yasser Arafat. Now, let's step back for a moment and remember that in 1948, when Gaza was controlled by Egypt, and that's who controlled the Gaza Strip from 1948 to 1967, that the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin el-Husseini, who was the leading Palestinian nationalist, the leading Palestinian figure, he declared a Palestinian state based in Gaza with the backing of the Egyptian government, then led by King Farouk. And there was a cabinet appointed. There were ministries set up. And frankly, there were some Arab states which recognized a state of Palestine in Gaza. But I have to tell you, it went nowhere and absolutely made no impact on anybody, anywhere, in any way. In fact, the United States refused to recognize that government. Robert Lovett made the announcement, refused to recognize that government because they didn't control the territory. They had no economy. They had nothing. So, flash forward. The Mufti of Jerusalem is replaced by Yasser Arafat. Now, I've heard some commentators, particularly on CNN, talk about Gaza as being the Palestinian homeland. It is not the Palestinian homeland. The Palestinian homeland, in their minds, that is Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, the Palestinian homeland is what is today Israel. The West Bank and Gaza became central because the idea was a two-state solution. Now, flash forward to when Arik Sharon was Prime Minister of Israel. When Sharon was Prime Minister, he ordered the unilateral withdrawal of all Jews and all Jewish settlements from Gaza. And Sharon made a statement at the time. He said, "We will now see if the Palestinians can live side by side in peace with Israel. We will see whether or not Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Palestinian Authority can create a real peace, a model for peace in the Middle East." And of course, that failed. The Palestinian Authority was overthrown by Hamas. Hamas took over Gaza. There was actually an election. Hamas won the election. The Palestinian Authority was defeated. And Gaza remained a hotbed of turmoil. Now, there are close to 2 million people who lived in Gaza. The population grew remarkably from the days when I was there in 1968, when there were maybe 500,000 Palestinians. But it grew, and as it grew, the radicalism grew as well. The idea that Gaza could become the Riviera of the Middle East. I remember Anwar Sadat, when Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel, as part of the peace process, said to Sadat, "I will give you Gaza. You can start there." And Sadat rejected the offer. Absolutely, unequivocally. And so I want to reflect with you for a moment on what Donald Trump is suggesting. Donald Trump is suggesting that close to 2 million or 1.8 million Palestinians should be displaced from Gaza and settled somewhere else. So let's be clear. The Jordanians reject the notion because to involve the exodus of Palestinians to Jordan would mean the end of King Abdullah and the Hashemite dynasty. Do you remember the old expression, Jordan is Palestine? Because technically, Jordan was part of the Palestine Mandate, separated by the British to create a place, an emirate, which became the Kingdom of Transjordan, or the Kingdom of Jordan. And so when you stop and you think about those moments in history, you understand that it is impossible to remove Palestinians. They won't go to Jordan. It's not their home. And they won't go to Egypt. Heaven forbid. And can you imagine General Sisi, the president of Egypt, accepting Palestinians? He's been battling the Muslim Brotherhood, and he knows that the people who come from Gaza will be radicalized. The Arab regimes want nothing to do with this plan. And what is Donald Trump talking about? Having America take over Gaza and developing it like a development, which is what Donald Trump did? Can you imagine the United States trying to run the Gaza Strip? And if it were the most idyllic Riviera in the Middle East, can you imagine the Palestinians and the Arab world accepting it? And please be aware, not only have Jordan and Egypt rejected the notion, but Saudi Arabia has said no. They say there can be no relationship with Israel without a Palestinian state. So let me just point out to you that what Donald Trump has done is remarkable. No one believes for a minute that Gaza should be controlled by the United States. Talk about American imperialism. When Donald Trump talks about taking back the Panama Canal, when Donald Trump talks about annexing Canada as the 51st state, when Donald Trump talks about these things, you wonder, what in the world is he thinking? I want to close by pointing out that his plan for Gaza is going nowhere. But I also want to point out that Donald John Trump is President of the United States of America. Look at what he's saying. Think about what he's saying. These are serious matters, and we'll be talking about it more right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. Thanks for tuning into another episode of this podcast. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. I want to remind you, you can interact with me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and of course, those of you who choose to, you can email me. I'm very interested in what you have to say. And as for Gogo Zoger, thanks, Gogo. Another wonderful day with you, and I appreciate it more than I can say. Gogo, of course, is the wonderful producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you tomorrow.